So now we're up to 1948 in Homer Laughlin. We're done with the Frederick Reed shapes, for now at least, and we're starting with Don Schreckengost. We're going to look at 4 lines today: Jubilee in pastel glazes, Debutante, a decaled version, the blue-bodied Skytone, with and without decals, Suntone, which is brown-bodied ware, and then we're going to look at some pickup pieces. So all of these were designed by Don Schreckengost. Now, this is a picture was taken probably 1953 or 54. He was born in Sebring, Ohio in 1910, and he died in 2001. He was buried in Riverview Cemetery in East Liverpool. He lived a very full and productive life. We have a little bit of a resume here. He graduated, the Cleveland Art Institute with honors. He was the professor of industrial design at Alfred University, New York State College of Ceramics. Special studies in Sweden. He was a guest instructor in Mexico. He was the design director at Homer Laughlin, U.S. Stoneware, Mayer China, Royal China, Hall China, a designer consultant for Salem China. Had all kinds of awards and honors. And he was served on various committees and was the chairman of the American Ceramic Society and chairman of Art and Design Committee of the U.S. Potters Association for 8 years. So eventually I will post all this online and you can get a full view of his work. He stayed busy for most of his life. This is an article. It's not dated, I wish it was, but it's titled, "What is Modern Design?" It's written by Don Schreckengost, Chairman, Art and Design Committee, United States Potters Association. And I'll put this article online too so you can see the whole thing. So rather than me stand here and tell you what modern design is and pretend to know what I'm talking about, I'm going to focus on 2 paragraphs from this article because I think he did a wonderful job describing it. The first one, he says, modern or contemporary design is inclined towards basic form. It aims towards eliminating the superfluous. It gives a feeling of clean directness. It removes the non-essentials. It may embody new colors, either in the subtlety of its colors or the boldness of them. It combines beauty and function, and its purpose is to satisfy a need and increase sales. Certainly there is nothing frightening about that. Good modern design does not insult your intelligence, nor your aesthetic appreciation. The next paragraph deals with functionalism. And he says, functionalism, another keynote of modern design, has not been as neglected in our industry as others. We are concerned whether coffee pots pour easily, whether cups can be drunk from, and whether handles fit the fingers. The value of functionalism is unquestionably important and is one I enthusiastically endorse, but I do not want to see our ware express this quality alone with no regard for beauty. At one time there was a school of thought which believed that whatever was functional was automatically beautiful. We have come to realize that this theory is not necessarily true. In the mind of the industrial designer, it should be no more important nor less important than eye appeal. So I will put this full article up with the other materials pretty soon on the website, laurahollopark.net. We're going to jump right in and look at his first line for Homer Laughlin, which is Jubilee. Now, this was made to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Homer Laughlin China Company. It's pastel dinnerware. This brochure shows the full assortment on the inside. And we see what he was talking about, a very simple design. There's no superfluous details, as he calls it. I call it fussiness. You know, if we look at things from the 20s and 30s, or even the early 1940s, there's a fussiness with embossings and scallops and fluted verges and rings and so forth. And here we see none of that. These are just very clean, simple shapes. And we're going to see this all throughout the 1950s with Schreckengost's work. Jubilee came in 4 colors: celadon green, shell pink, mist gray, and cream beige. Sometimes the earlier advertisements will call this foam beige. It looks yellow in this picture, but it is more like a beige color in reality. I don't have any to show you except for the pink. It's not that it's incredibly rare or anything. It's just I don't actively collect Jubilee. If I find it, I'll buy it, but I don't go looking for it. And here you see all 4 colors together. This was not a great success. It was introduced in 1948 and it was discontinued sometime around 1953, so about a 5 to 6 year run. I printed out this from newspapers.com because this comes from July 20th, 1952, and it's advertising a closeout, so everything's half price. And there are similar ads around this time period from 52. There's one in 54. I wish I'd printed it out now, but it says something to the effect, Jubilee has been discontinued, everything's like 80% off. So not a huge success, but there's Jubilee. One piece that you will find in these other lines that you won't find in Jubilee, actually there's two of them. The lug soup was not made in Jubilee, and the 15-inch platter was not either. But you will find them in the other three that we're going to look at here in a moment. This is a boilerplate letter that was sent out to potential buyers on January 5th, 1948, announcing Jubilee. It says for, let's see, lovely soft tones, celadon green, dawn gray, foam beige, here you see foam beige, and shell pink. This is the first trade advertisement showing Jubilee. This is from January 1948, China Glass and Decorative Accessories Trade Journal. We have a tablescape there, the star of the show. And again, it's calling it foam beige. So you'll see that sometimes instead of the more common, what was that again? Cream beige. And another trade advertisement, this one from 1948, July of 1948, promoting the Jubilee shape. And this comes from 1956, and it shows Don Schreckengost at work at Homer Laughlin. This was a part of an advertisement for plasters so that you could make plaster molds. And here he is working on a Jubilee or even Debutante shape teapot. And this picture I wanted to show, I took this at Homer Laughlin several years ago, and it shows the Jubilee shaped teacups in all four glazes, but there's hobnails on them. There's evidence to suggest that Jubilee was going to be a hobnail line, that all the hollowware was going to have all this on the exterior, and the flatware would have it along the edge. That didn't happen, however, and we have the more familiar Jubilee shape. I'm glad it didn't happen because I imagine these would have chipped off pretty easily. But the only pieces that were modeled were the teacup and I believe the 10-inch dinner plate. And then they abandoned that and then just went to the more familiar Jubilee shapes. So that would have been, let's see, hobnail was the spring of 1947 when these would have been modeled. And then we have an advertisement. We saw this advertisement before when we were looking at Fiesta, and here we see Jubilee right alongside Fiesta in its blue, yellow, turquoise, and ivory. This is before the 50s colors. And on the other side we see Skytone. And these are just some advertisements that would have been used in newspaper advertisements. This is Jubilee with a Joan Crawford-esque lady admiring her pottery. And then there's another Jubilee advertisement that would have been used in newspapers so that they could put, it says copy here, so they would have put details of the store and where you could buy it and so forth. Before it was called Jubilee, it was going to be called Pageant at one time. And we see a mock-up of an advertisement here. It was also going to be called Minuet. Another mock-up. These are copies, by the way. Homer Laughlin, makers of the ever-popular Fiesta. And it was going to be called Debutante. We did get the Debutante name in the decalware, which we're going to look at in a moment. Sensational new dinnerware. So, that's a little bit about Jubilee. Now we're going to look at Debutante, which uses the Jubilee molds. Debutante is its own shape. It's just decalware. It's made mainly 1950 to about 1954-55. It wasn't as popular as Jubilee either. Let's see, this one's 1950. There's a typical back stamp. Debutante will mostly have date codes. Jubilee will not. Let's look at a Jubilee back stamp real quick because I don't think I showed one. There's the Jubilee marking. Homer Laughlin, USA. No date code. So we've got the grape pattern and the wheat pattern. We've got this white rose with platinum trim. Debutante's one of those lines that doesn't use a lot of gold or platinum trim. In fact, you look at these others and they don't have any at all. Theme Eggshell Modern Farmer are two others that don't have a lot of trim work on them. We have some brochures we can look at real quick. Debutante, Dogwood. I believe this was sold at Montgomery Ward's for a number of years. We see the full assortment. And there's our 15-inch platter and the lug soup, which you do not see in the standard Jubilee line, but you will find it in the others. And this one is Valley Flower. Again, they're all going to be the same with these assortments on the inside. Wild Grape, which there's a coffee pot here for Wild Grape. And you see the cleanness in the decal treatments. You know, he was talking about superfluous details, and I was talking about fussiness. The decals are also very clean, and they're a little abstract. They're stylized. You don't have these rose and poppy and daisy bouquets that you saw in the older wares. Flame Flower, this is a pretty nice pattern, again, on Debutante. So yeah, Jubilee and Debutante, not the greatest lines made by Homer Laughlin in terms of sales. Now, Skytone, on the other hand, was different. Skytone was introduced around 1950 and was produced as late as 1958, maybe even 1959. So this ran a good long time. And you see these different stylized decal treatments, or it could be sold plain. One thing I want to point out, this one, it's called Sequence, and it was made by Sears, made for Sears, I should say. We look at the back stamp, and we have the Harmony House overglaze marking. And it says at the bottom, HH Pacific Blue and HH Cherry Pink. So you'll see Harmony House markings, not only on Homer Laughlin ware, but others as well. And the idea was, as I understand it, was that you could get something like this and buy other products with that color scheme to match, like linens or napkins or cutlery or anything else that Sears might have been offering, and hence the term Harmony House. Everything could harmonize. So that was a little promotion they had going on in the 50s, and you'll see Harmony House back stamps. Bluemont is one thing I want to talk about as well, and I have a piece here. So this is a salad nappy or just a vegetable bowl. And it says, New Bluemont Homer Laughlin China Company. Well, we have another advertisement showing the exact same pattern as Twilight. And this is where it can get a little confusing when people say, what's the name of my pattern? And sometimes there were no patterns, and in this case we have two names, Bluemont and Twilight. But in either case, it's going to be the same in that they will have identical treatment numbers, HLS 205, HLS 205, and if we look at an actual example, HLS 205. So that's just to underscore that treatment numbers are more important than pattern names. Also, we have Cavalier, which we're going to look at soon, as well as Rhythm, and there's a Virginia Rose treatment. This picture was taken by Joe Cunningham, and it shows a gray version of Skytone. So you have gray bodied ware with a white handle and a clear glaze. There's also a dark green version that didn't go into production. And here we have a Skytone brochure. Looks very much like the Debutante ones with the full assortment. The double egg cup has a blue top and a white bottom, but you can find some where it's reversed. So it'll have the white top and the blue bottom. Same thing with these gravy fast stands. Or you can find them with blue tops and blue bottoms. So you've got some variations there with those two pieces. This is, let's move it over here. A Skytone brochure. This was drawn up by Don Schreckengost, so it's a pencil sketch. And as we move forward with Don Schreckengost, and I show you these advertisements and drawings that he did, not copies, but actual ones. I should point out that I purchased Joe Cunningham's research materials. And she and Don Schreckengost became very good friends. And he would give her a lot of materials. So now I have them. And eventually, I'm going to be giving them to the Division of Culture and History in Charleston, West Virginia. So you're going to see a lot of these things and wonder, well, how do you get those? Well, most of them came by way of Joe Cunningham. So that's some original artwork by him. That's what the proposed Skytone brochure was supposed to look like, and here's the actual finished product. And we have a couple slicks here that were meant for newspaper advertisements, another Joan Crawford wannabe admiring our Skytone dinnerware. Narcissus, which we have a platter in the back showing the Narcissus decal on Skytone. Another Skytone slick, and then there's Bluemont, which we just looked at before with pattern HLS 205. And we have an insert promoting Skytone. So this was a very successful line, and it provides an interesting case study in that you have the shape, you have the color, you have the treatments, you have the price range. All of it comes together to create this very successful line, whereas the decaled version or the pasteled version did not. So it wasn't the case that the shapes were bad. I mean, clearly, if the shapes were bad, then this would not have sold as well. But you will have no problem finding Skytone if you want to collect this, or already do. Skytone will have a date code. This one's from 1956, plant number 8. Let's see if I can find an early one, 55. So yeah, it's made up until about 1958, maybe even 1959. The ones with the white bottoms on them, you can usually get a nice clear marking. This one's 1953. So that's a little bit about Skytone. Here we have an advertisement with Morning Bloom, HLS 276. This would have been towards the end of Skytone's run. That's not a very common pattern. And then there's Suntone, which is brown-bodied clay with white handles and finials given a clear glaze. Not a great seller. This one was introduced in 1951 and was discontinued sometime around 1955. So of all of these, it probably had the shortest run. And we got another little advertisement slick here that would have been used in newspapers, Suntone. So here's Suntone. We got a teapot and a double egg cup. Or I was telling you, you could get the brown top, brown bottom, as opposed to in Skytone you can have blue top, white bottom. So you'll find the variations in the Suntone double egg cups as well. Same with the gravy liners. And here's the Suntone back stamp, no date code. Suntone, you are not going to find this with decals. It's not really meant for decals. The brown body wouldn't be appropriate. Although there is a calendar plate with a gold stamp on it, and that's from 1953, I believe. I can't see the date right now, but I think it's from 53. Suntone has a little mini cup and saucer that was made as a salesman's sample. Sometimes you can find the original box with this. Has a white back stamp on it, Suntone. Those were modeled in October of 1950 so that it could be released in 1951. That's a little bit about Suntone. Not that difficult to find, even though it has a shorter run than all the other lines. Now here's a coffee pot with a decal. It's gardenia. Now this was meant to mix in with, I believe, Nautilus dinnerware. You're going to see lines from the 50s like Nautilus and Rhythm that didn't have coffee pots pick up the Jubilee coffee pot. Another good example is the cowboy pattern on Rhythm. If you're really lucky, you can find the Jubilee coffee pot with the cowboy decal on it. But this, since it's a pickup piece, is not going to be marked with all the other markings. It's just going to have a general back stamp. In this case, it's 1955. So you'll be able to tell if it's a pickup piece by the marking. And the salt and pepper shakers, which let's look at those real quick. We have the Jubilee shakers here, which were the original versions, and the shell pink. We've got Debutante versions, and we have Skytone ones here. Oh, those aren't Skytone. Never mind. They should go over here, because the Jubilee shakers were picked up and used with other dinnerware lines all the way into the 90s. Maybe even the 2000s in the case of Diplomat, which was banquetware. But this would have been used with Cavalier. This is Cavalier. This Rhythm. This probably would have been used with Bristol. This is probably used with Vogue. Another Cavalier set, another Cavalier set. So if you find these shakers, they're probably not going to come from any of the lines we just saw because they became pretty good pickup pieces. So that's a little bit about our first shapes by Don Schreckengost for Homer Laughlin. Again, we got Jubilee, pastelware, decaled version, and Debutante. The decaled and plain version in Skytone, and finally Suntone, with Skytone being the most popular. That's going to be it for today. Next time we'll look at Rhythm.